Good evening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Classic Comics livecast. So this is going to be covering the latest news on Indiana Jones 5. We're going to talk about the casting of the new Superman. We're going to be looking at, let's see, what else have we got here? Some other Disney Star Wars related stuff. We're going to be looking at Jonathan Majors, some of the latest news on Jonathan Majors, Secret Invasion and how that's performing. Apparently it ain't good. And a few other things. Hope you're having a good holiday weekend. Mine's been kind of busy myself, but let's see. Why don't we go ahead and get started here? First thing I'm going to cover, and of course, I want to thank everyone who listens in, both on the live stream. Oh, hey, J-Man. Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. Have you seen Indiana Jones 5 yet? I was about to say, I've done mine and I'm uploading it right now. Hopefully that'll be up later tonight. The thing is just taking forever to get uploaded. Okay. And now, hey, if you want to come in and stop in, let me know. I can send you a link. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start with Indiana Jones. Why don't we just do that? So let me bring that up. You hated it, huh? Your review is 30 minutes. You want to come in and talk about it? We can kind of kick it around. So, so this is from Variety. Box office for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny stumbles 60 million debut, and that Kraken movie flopped as well. Yeah, okay. I'll send you a link here. Let me give me just a sec here. Invite. There it is. Okay. Okay, I'll send this to you. Well, if this thing will come on. There we go. I tell you, my computer's running really slow, I think, because of the upload. Okay, I put a link in your DM. That should work for you. Let me know if it doesn't. Okay, so Disney's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny lasso the top spot on the domestic box office charts, collecting an underwhelming 60 million in its opening weekend. There's a decent amount of money for a tentpole that's aimed at older audiences, but Indiana Jones 5, one of the most expensive movies ever, cost $295 million before marketing. Holy crap. It's going to lose so much money. Let's see where. Okay, so it'll take a heroic feat, one that would test even an enduring legend like Indiana Jones, for the fifth installment in the decades-old franchise to become profitable in its theatrical run. It was a disappointing weekend at the box office as Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken, a 70 million budgeted family film from DreamWorks and Universal, cratered in its sixth place debut with 5.2 million. In addition to Dial of Destiny and Ruby Gillman, the DC superhero adventure The Flash tumbled to the number 8 spot in its third weekend of release with 5 million, another embarrassing 67% drop. It has yet to cross 100 million domestically, with ticket sales at 99.2 million to date. Boy, it's just a rough weekend at the box office all around for everybody. All right, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the final adventure to star Harrison Ford. as the swashbuckling explorer, added 70 million at the international box office for a global start of 130 million. That's worse than The Flash, which misfired with 75 million internationally and 139 million globally, and cost 100 million less to make. Man, I mean, we thought The Flash was going to lose a lot of money. Jesus, this thing's gonna bankrupt the studio. In terms of its domestic debut, the latest Indiana Jones didn't come close to matching its predecessor, 2008's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which opened 15 years ago to 100 million. And uh, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is better than Dial of Destiny, by the way. I mean, it's not a perfect film, but it's better than this thing. This thing is a mess. Ugh. Let's see, whereas the audience and critics were lukewarm on Dial of Destiny, which earned a B+ cinema score and holds a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. It'll get a boost on Tuesday's July 4th holiday, which estimates of 82 million domestically and 152 million worldwide for the 5-day frame. But the action adventure doesn't have a long runway before Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Christopher Nolan's atomic bomb drama Oppenheimer, which catered to similar demographics, open on the big screen. This is a weak opening, says David A. Gross, who runs the movie consulting firm Franchise Entertainment Research. Most action adventure series finish by episode 5, and that's happening here. Ruby Gillman added 7.6 million at the international box office, bringing its worldwide total to 12.8 million. Despite the weak turnout, audiences like the movie, which has an A- cinema score and centers on a shy teenager who discovers she's part of a legendary royal lineage of mythical sea creatures. I saw trailers for that thing. It didn't look particularly good to me. Okay, here's J-Man. Let me bring him in.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, man. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so not a fan of Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, huh?
No, I despised it. It's the worst movie I've seen in the theater. I would think I'd have to think about it a little bit, but I would say it's worse. I think it's worse than Last Jedi. I think it's worse than Force Awakens.
Oh, really?
Or oh yeah, yeah. Indiana Jones is like child. Like I never wanted to be Superman or Luke or anything. Like I wanted to be Indiana Jones. I wanted to be an archaeologist, even up to my first year of university. So I would pretend I was Indiana Jones and try to jump over stuff, and I used the skipping rope as a whip. And like, I never pretended I was Superman. Superman's my favorite character of all time. Like he's my favorite character of anything. But I never pretended to be Superman, any of that. So, and I'm like I have a way different opinion than everybody else on the entire Indiana Jones thing. I think Temple of Doom is a masterpiece. I think it's 10 out of 10. It's pulp style adventure serials. Like it's like the perfect representation of that. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is 10 out of 10. It's pretty much like a flawless movie. I actually like Temple of Doom better. I did see Temple of Doom first though. And then I saw Raiders second. So I actually saw them in kind of chronological
order,
but not release date order. Which actually makes more sense because I just like, I was like, okay, well, it's like that's how he became who he was, right? But and then I saw Last Crusade in the theater, and I thought it was okay. I don't like that Indiana Jones has like a family and a dad, and now we got to follow this dad around. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? And then he's making fun of him. I'm like, okay. It's like, oh, Junior and all this. I'm like, why is this happening? And then in the beginning, they show how Indiana Jones got his hat, how he got his coat, how he got his whip. And it's like, well, he got his iconic hat because some other unnamed grave robber guy gave it to him. So Indiana Jones based his entire look from another person. And then at the end, they're like, oh, your name's not really Indiana Jones. The dog's name is Indiana Jones. And your name is really, Henry Jones Jr., I thought. So that's not his name. And he's named after a dog. Like, and then I'm thinking, this movie sucks. And everyone's like, oh man, this is awesome. It's way better than Temple of Doom. I'm like, it's better than Temple of Doom. It's like, are you sure? And then my problem was that everyone loved Last Crusade so much that it made me like dislike it more. But I've seen it so many times. And I just recently rewatched them all four on 4K before seeing this new one. And then Crystal Skull came out. I thought, well, this wasn't really good. And the funny thing is that I didn't hate on it because everyone hated on Crystal Skull. And I came to find out that the reason is that they saw it as an enormous step down from Last Crusade. But I saw Last Crusade as an enormous step down from Temple of Doom. And I just thought Crystal Skull was a slight step down from Last Crusade, right? Like I didn't. So I'm just like, okay, this is the same stuff. Instead of his dad tagging along, now it's his son tagging along. Why do I care if his son is tagging along? Oh, look, it's Marion. Let's bring her back. And, okay, now she's tagging along. And I was just like, why is this happening? And it's funny, too, because to me, Last Crusade and Crystal Skull are all about family hijinks and fun adventure. And it's not the gritty pulp style, people are melting, like crazy shit is happening, hearts are being ripped out, kids are being whipped, like all of that stuff, all that hardcore stuff was ripped from Last Crusade. I'm like, this is like and the funny thing is, like, my wife loves Last Crusade and Crystal Skull, and she's not a fan of the other two. She's like, I don't know, this is right. And I was like, and I know why, because these other two are very fun and there's a little bit more like silliness to them.
There's more
right?
humor.
And
the Last Crusade, in Last Crusade, there's a definite shift in tone as far as it's not as dark, it's not as violent, or like you say, it's not as harsh. There's a lot more kind of goofy bits, I mean, I like the movie. I enjoy it quite a bit, but it does have some stuff. I mean, the thing that always gets me is the bit with the plane going through the tunnel,
right?
Which that's like a Looney Tunes thing.
No, yeah. There's like so many, and it's like Junior, like they're spinning around and like so they're tied up to each other, and they spin around. There's a room full of Nazis. I'm like, what is this? The Marx Brothers here? This is literally like a Three Stooges gag or something. I'm like, I don't get it. Yeah. I don't hate that movie. So I would say 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. So Raiders and Temple are 10 out of 10. They're masterpieces. I can literally go on about how amazing they are. And then Last Crusade is probably like a 7 out of 10. So on my rating scale, 7 out of 10 means that it's really enjoyable. Like 5 out of 10 is sort of a pass. 6 is just slightly like 5 is like, that's a pass. 6 is okay. 7 is good. 8 is great. 9 is fantastic, something like that. So I would give Crystal Skull probably like a 6. There's still neat things in it. It's a step down from Last Crusade, but not a massive step down in my opinion. But Last Crusade's the massive step down, but not that massive. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's like utter dog shit or something.
Yeah, I think it's. I was just saying a few minutes ago. I mean, it's definitely head and shoulders above this. A Dial of Destiny. This thing's a mess, man.
I'd give this a 1 out of 10. I gave this a 1 out of 10. I'm giving it a 0.5 score for Harrison Ford and a 0.5 score for John Williams, and the rest of the thing can go F itself. This was like the passion of Indiana Jones. They just took Indiana Jones, ran him through the ringer, made fun of him, said he was shit the whole movie. And then at the end, it's like, oh, here's Marion. And it's like, look, kiss. And you know what's so stupid? Look, James Mangold sucks. I'm going to say it straight up. They're kissing. Remember, he's like, oh, they did the Raiders gag where it's like, oh, it doesn't hurt here. And he kisses it. Right. Okay. Right. So I don't think James Mangold watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, because in Raiders of the Lost Ark, that was her trying to seduce him, and he fell asleep through being, beat up for the half the movie. So why would they relive that as a cute moment? Like, he fell asleep and she's like, oh, and she's just kind of standing there like, oh, I thought we were going to go somewhere, and he fell asleep. So is that that's a cute moment for the audience to remember, but not for the characters to act.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Not for the characters. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense for the characters. So it's like, oh, look, see, we're giving you that. Isn't that cute? No, it's not. It's not cute, because that scene is not about that.
If you put it in context, you're right. It doesn't make any sense. It's for the audience. It doesn't really make any sense for the characters. It's like I tell you, I would give an example. Han and Leia naming their son Ben.
Right.
That makes no
No
sense
sense. Right.
because, they, first of all, Han barely knew the guy, so why would he name his son after him?
Right.
And Leia, why would she name her son Ben?
Yeah, she
Because
spends
she
zero
knew
time with them.
she knew, yeah, well, and she knows Ben isn't even his real name. Ben's just an alias. His real name is Obi-Wan Kenobi. If she's going to name her son somebody, wouldn't she name him after her adopted father, Bail Organa?
Right. Like it's
But
like
they
stupidness.
name him Ben, but they name him Ben because the audience knows the name Ben Kenobi, so they gave him that name, even though it doesn't make any sense for the characters. Yeah, you see quite a bit of that stuff these days in
Yeah.
franchises where they do stuff because it's a reference that they know people in the audience will get,
Right.
but it doesn't make any sense for the characters. There were a couple of those in Picard. I can't remember them right off, but I remember watching some. I didn't watch the actual episodes, but I saw like bits and pieces on YouTube, and I
Right.
remember seeing a couple of incidents like that in Picard where they did things, and it's like it makes no sense for the the characters to do that. It's obviously just a reference to a member berry for the audience.
Yeah, and just to yeah, I didn't watch Picard either. There's no chance in hell I'm watching that. And my thing with saying it's better than Last Jedi or Force Awakens is that um, those movies still had action. Like this movie's action was so paint by numbers, it's unbelievable. Like if I give you an example of any of the other four films, including the lesser of the two, like let's like even if we took Crystal Skull as an example, there's a car chase with Jeeps in Crystal Skull. Now there has to be a car chase of some sort in an Indiana Jones movie. That's kind of, there's always going to be one chase. So they have their car chase, but while the car is chasing, they're jumping, like people like the Russians and Indy's crew are jumping from car to car. Sometimes one guy ends up in the wrong car. The skull is being thrown around and it's almost playing like they're playing catch ball with it. Then they're going almost on a cliff and they're almost getting knocked off a cliff. And then there's a part where Shia LaBeouf grabs a sword and then he starts sword fighting in between the cars with Kate Blanchett. And then the big German guy or the big Russian guy falls out of the thing. Then Indiana Jones falls out of it. Then there's a bunch of ants that are flesh-eating ants are coming up. And then they're fighting in the middle of the ants, trying not to get bit by the ants, right? So it's like, right, there's a lot of little things going on. I don't care if you thought that movie was good or bad. It doesn't matter. The fact is that there's little things going on, like Temple of Doom. Oh, he's got to have a fist fight with a big, huge Indian guy. So this big, huge Indian guy comes out and they're going to have this fist fight. But instead of just having a fist fight, they're having a fist fight on a conveyor belt. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool because they're moving and fist fighting at the same time. But at the end of the conveyor belt is this grinder, which is grinding up all of the rocks and everything they're mining. So you're like,
Right.
okay, so they're going to get ground up. It's like, well, that's pretty exciting. Oh, no, hold on a second. While Indiana Jones is fighting this guy on a conveyor belt and is going to be grinded up, the Maharaja is using a voodoo doll to torture Indy and hit him in certain spots to make it fun for him to fall down. I'm like, okay, that's a lot going on for what on paper could just be written as Indy fights a giant Indian.
Yeah.
There's zero examples in this new movie. It's like, look, they're on a train, they run around slamming doors. I'm like, I've seen this in every train. Like every train sequence that we've seen in any movie always has the guys on top of the train and them running around the carts. Indiana Jones needs to add something more to this mix. That's why we went to Indiana Jones. We didn't like it's not just, oh, they're on a rope bridge. It's like, no, Indiana Jones is going to cut the rope bridge. You're like, what? Like, this is crazy, right? Like, where is the crazy thing?
Yeah, they always did a great job in those older films of kind of upping the ante, increasing the danger. And you're right, yeah, they don't really, the action sequences aren't that creative, like you say. I mean, like on the train, there's a tunnel and they have to duck,
Oh no, haven't seen that before. Even Steven Seagal ducked that.
And another thing is, it just seemed to me, and I mentioned this in my review of it, that it just seemed like the action sequences, particularly that chase scene with the little carts or whatever, goes on for a long time. It seems like that goes on a good 15 minutes.
Oh, it's long.
That is way too long. And yeah, and also, but even the physical action, like when they're having fights. I mean, look, I love Harrison Ford and all, but the guy's 78 and he can't move like he used to.
Right.
So when he's like punching guys or whatever, or trying to punch guys, he's not moving very fast. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge isn't much better. So as a
She's
result,
awful.
the little physical action you get in the movie, it's not very effective or very entertaining or convincing. And yeah,
No.
the chase scene on the train, yeah, I mean it's not bad, but it's not particularly exciting either. And yeah, and another thing I noticed, and I mean obviously this is a lot of people will have different feelings about it, but the CGI of the particularly when they're in those caves and Indy and her are going through the cave and there's all these like millipedes or centipedes or whatever and creepy crawlies
Right.
that are on them, and it's just there's CGI and it's just so obviously not real, and compare
They're
that to
bad.
Temple of Doom,
Yeah. And how
where,
about this?
they're
It's two
using,
steps.
uh-huh,
It was two steps. Like, it's like, oh, look, there's bugs. Okay, they're gone. Okay. The bugs on Willie Scott wasn't just bugs on Willie Scott. It was bugs on Willie Scott while Indy and Shorty are being crushed by a spiked, it's not just a ceiling cave in, it's literally a spiked ceiling
yeah,
that's crushing them while
yeah, that
she,
too, yeah.
yeah, while she has to get through the bugs in order to rescue them. I'll tell you something. If Sean and Steve were stuck in that room, they're dead. I'm not going through those bugs. It's over. I'm like, sorry guys, well, I got to find. I'll find two other guys to stream with me. That's it. It's like classic. You can come stream with me. Sean and Steve are dead. It's like I'm not going through that pit of bugs to, like it wasn't just, oh look, there's bugs. It's like it served a purpose in the story. Like this is like Willie Scott is a nightclub singer in the 30s, just like a nightclub
Uh-huh.
singer in the 30s who is kidnapped by Indiana Jones and forced to go on this adventure. And now she's stuck with all these bugs going on her. Even a regular person, like I'm a pretty tough guy. I'm not scared of bugs, but I don't want 100 of them on me. Right. Like, I mean, that's a lot to put the character through. And it's a pretty good scene. He's like, we are going to die. And she's like, okay, I'm trying, and it's like in this
Yeah,
movie, they walk
and
through some bugs.
even hardened guys are going to watch that and are going to be squirming because of
Oh,
all
hell
those
yeah.
friggin' bugs. But part of it is because most of those bugs are real,
They are. Yeah. It's
and
gross.
I know there are some fake ones in there too, but even the fake ones look pretty real.
Yeah.
And compare that to these CGI bugs, and like you say, it's just like they're only there for a second. It's like, what was the point even? And
Right.
I guess they just felt like, well, Indiana Jones movies are supposed to have creepy crawlies in them, so let's put some
That's
in, whatever.
exactly. It's the
And
motions.
like
Look,
the eels in the shipwreck, it's
right.
just like they don't really pose much of a threat, but they're there because
Right.
eels or whatever.
Right. Exactly. I was like, oh, look, there's eels. They don't do anything. So what do I care? Like the snakes. Okay, he's scared of snakes and raiders, but the snakes are blocking their pathway to get out of the well of the souls. They can't, and they're running out of the fluid or whatever, right? It's like they can't kill them. And there's so many. It serves as a story purpose and as an obstacle. You're a D&D guy. It's another obstacle. You're not going to write a D&D adventure.
Right.
Okay, guys, in this next room, there's some falling ice. Okay, so if the ice falls on us, what happens? Oh, 0 hit points. Nothing. You're like, well, why would I do a dexterity check to avoid them then? Because it's D&D and you do dex checks? Like, no. Like, what is the threat here? It's like, well, I failed the dex threat. Okay, well, the ice hits you and falls off you. It's like, okay, what? Then don't do that. Then don't even bother. Just say there's a room with ice that's falling. What do you want to do? I want to run as fast as I can. There, okay, you guys pass it. You're in the next room, right? Like that's basically what Dial of Destiny did. They're like, oh yeah, we need to have a tomb. We need to have some creepy crawlies. Oh, we need to have a card chase. It's like, where was the excitement of putting in extra things? Like you could just see in Raiders, they're like, let's one up it. Okay, he's got to fight this fucking big German guy comes up. Oh, but what if there's an airplane and the airplane is spinning around while guys are attacking them? So Marion is shooting people while Indy is fighting that big, huge guy. And they've got to duck the wings, they've got to duck the propeller, they got to watch the wheels, right? Plus there's guys coming over, and then all of a sudden there's gas leaking everywhere, there's fire going all around. I'm like, right, it's not just a
Right.
fist fight. Look, I love Van Damme, I watch Lionheart, Bloodsport, those are fist fights, right? And they're cool fights. But this is Indiana Jones. It can't just be a fist fight. It needs to be really neat. And everyone remembers that big German guy. Look, how many fights have there been in movies? Like 4 trillion. Every movie has a fight, but you remember that one because you're like, oh yeah, the propeller, that was crazy. And then he turned around and the propeller got him right in the face.
Right.
Like, oh shit, like what
Well,
the
I
hell?
think
This movie's crazy.
I think it just speaks to the creative ability of Lucas and Spielberg because.
Yep.
Oh, hey, Brian Hepburn. Thanks for stopping
Hey,
by,
Brian.
man. And yeah, in fact, I was thinking about doing a video. Have you ever read the Raiders story transcripts where
No.
Spielberg and Lucas and I think what's his face? It's the guy that did the screenplay for Raiders and Empire.
Yeah. Is it Kaz? No, Kaz. What's the guy's name? We can look it up as
Kasdan, Lawrence Kasdan.
Kasdan. I thought,
Lawrence
Raiders. Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, that's it. Kasdan.
They had a series of meetings where they basically hashed out the story and the plot and everything, and they recorded it. And apparently, at some point, that got turned into a transcript and it got out onto the internet. And it's fascinating reading. I mean, if you're a fan of Raiders, I would definitely recommend taking a look at it. I've been meaning to do a video on that and talk about it because so much of what happens that they come up with, because originally Raiders was going to be a significantly different story. So according to what they talk about in this conversation they're having, so the opening is kind of the same, and it's kind of the same up until Indy goes to Asia.
Okay.
And so originally Marion was going to be a much smaller part. He basically was just going to go and get the medallion from her, or the head of Ra, or whatever you want to call it.
The headpiece of the staff of Ra.
And that was going to kind of be it. Yeah, and that was going to kind of be it. She was not going to be in the rest of the movie. And there was going to be more stuff. And actually the, like the first 20 minutes or so of Temple of Doom, from the opening up until the raft, when they land in the raft, all that stuff was originally going to be in Raiders.
Yeah, I'd heard about that. A lot of there's some carryover from Raiders and Temple of Doom.
Yeah, there was going to be more stuff in Asia originally, and then when Indy went to Cairo, what they were originally planning was when he got to Cairo, there was going to be a German woman who was a nightclub singer. Singing in a nightclub in Cairo, and then Indy would get involved with her, and then she would turn out to be a double agent working for the Nazis. So if you look at the movies, they kind of took that character and kind of spread it out over 3 movies, because they eventually got to the point where they decided to just dump that character and make Marion the main, romantic interest. And then they took that character and kind of split it up between Temple of Doom and Last Crusade.
Right. Yeah, and that's really interesting, and I like the idea. So this is sort of an unpopular opinion, but I actually like the idea of recasting Indiana Jones and making it like James Bond, which was supposed to be the original concept. It needs to stay in that let's say early 40s or late 30s or what. It has to be in that pulp era. I don't like when because like as soon as you get to the 50s, you're like, oh, well, what's he doing in the 50s? Then it's in the 60s. And now you have to explain, oh, where's the wife? You can't get too much baggage, and that's one of my things. It's like, and Klobby and Michael from Retro were talking about this. And I actually was like, finally, someone's on the same page. Like, I love Indiana Jones. I love Harrison Ford. The trilogy is the trilogy. I accepted Last Crusade to be like, okay, that's the last one. They should have recast and did more adventures. It needs to stay in that time period. I think once you start getting out of that time period, it starts to be weird. Like if even like this one is what, 1960 something, I guess, or what? I don't know what Dial of Destiny is.
Yeah, 69.
69. Wow.
1969.
Wow. See, right. And it just feels like it's weird. And then they pulled that thing where they found I guess it was like the Spear of Destiny or whatever, like, and they just said, oh, it has no powers. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't that have any power? And why does the Ark have power and that doesn't have power? And all I could think of was that they don't, nowadays people look down, or at least Hollywood looks down on religion. I'm not religious at all. I'm pretty much an atheist, but people look down on religion and they're like, oh yeah, that spear has no power. Well, if you're establishing that all these religions, whatever artifacts are from these different religions, if they do have powers, like the crystal skull actually had powers or did something, and the Sankara stone actually did something, and the commandments or the Ark really did have the commandments, I guess dust in them now, but they had magical properties. Why wouldn't the spear have magical properties then? It's just like, do you guys care about what you're doing? Like, it doesn't matter what your belief system is. You're trying to make an adventure. Like, I would have gone through all of the religions. I would have maybe gone through Japan and looked through Japan's history and see if there's some kind of Buddha thing, or I don't know. Like, I would have tried different regions and said, oh, what's this folklore here, and and what can we use and do a cool item that way? Like, the Dial of Destiny is cool, but I don't understand what it does. And that's the problem when you have something that's not obvious. Like the Ten Commandments is like, okay, once you open up the Ark, you can't face it. You're supposed to not look, right? That's the whole point. The Grail, we all know, you drink that, you're immortal, but obviously you can only be immortal within the seal, so that they explain why Indiana Jones is not immortal once he leaves once he leaves that cave. It's like, well, aren't you immortal now? So I like that. You know what I mean? Even Crystal Skull, it's like, it's still a thing, right? Like, it's like Crystal Skull, the first thing that was like, I guess it was the 50s or whatever. So it's like right away, I'm like, now it's like the 50s. That already irked me, because then you've got your Shia LaBeouf character, who is, basically a 50s punk kid. And I rewatched Crystal Skull and didn't, my opinion's the same. It's like, it's fine. There's some okay parts to it. There's some goofiness, but anyway, they just, I don't know, like, they should have just recasted this. But the problem is now it's a dead property. There's nobody in the theater. There was like, I posted a picture on Twitter. There was like, maybe like, I think it was like 25 people on a Thursday opening night screening. And I mean, the Flash was rammed. Every movie, I go every Thursday to see a movie, and it's rammed every time. Doesn't matter what movie it is. Like, my theater IMAX, it's one of the better IMAXs in the area. It's rammed. This had nobody. I was actually, like, I was with Sean and Steven, and I'm like, oh shit, guys, we should get going. And I'm like, looking at my watch, I'm like, this movie starts in 10 minutes. There's no one here. Like, I'm always there an hour early, because we have our seats assigned to us, because we, you pick your seat when you buy your ticket. So I always have the same seat. But I always get there an hour early, because I want to get my popcorn and snacks and, not really be in a lineup forever, right? And there's nobody. So Indiana Jones is a dead property.
Yeah, I went to it Friday evening, and there weren't a lot of people. There were, like I said, I think there might have been 20, something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, this thing is bombing. It's gonna lose more money than the Flash, it looks like, which is, that's pretty bad. But it's, they've totally brought this on themselves. They have no one to blame for this but themselves. Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy and Disney, they've been pulling crap like this for a while. And because of the brand names and because of audience loyalty and hype and all that, they've been able to get away with it. But I think, first of all, a combination of people being burnt repeatedly by them with, like, Last Jedi and, Thor Love and Thunder or whatever, all these disappointing movies. And then also just rising prices and inflation, and people, it's getting expensive for people to go to the movies. And then I think also the pandemic, I think it just kind of got a lot of people out of the habit of going to the theater. I think they just don't do it so much anymore, and now it's coming back to bite them, and they deserve it. They know it's actually the biggest. It's the first thing you said was the most accurate. It's Disney. They burn people. They suck. Guess what? People keep saying. Okay. People keep saying, oh, there's superhero fatigue, or it's okay. You know what fatigue there isn't? Mission Impossible fatigue. Like,
those, like, what about Fast and the Furious fatigue? Like, where's all these other fatigues that people are talking about? It's like, oh, superhero fatigue. Well, there's no fatiguing on these other series, which keep getting better. I don't know about Fast and the Furious. I only saw the first few, but Mission Impossible, and I haven't even seen. I saw Mission Impossible 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I saw the first 4, but like 5, 6, 7 was this now 8 or something. Like, these movies still make tons of money, and Oppenheimer opens in about 20 days. It's sold out. Like like I bought tickets in advance. It's sold out. Oppenheimer, does anyone give a shit about that movie? That's certainly, like, if I went to a generic person saying, do you think people are more excited about Indiana Jones or Oppenheimer? And 9 out of 10 people are going to say, what's Oppenheimer? And everyone's like, oh, Indiana Jones. It's like, well, why is Indiana Jones garbage? And like, Oppenheimer is like full. It's ram-packed. The first row is free right now. That's it. Otherwise, it's sold out. So I don't know. It's like Disney sucks. People are tired of it. They're like, we want to see something fun and exciting. All you do is make fun of the characters. And it's guys like me. I don't have any kids, but my cousin's my age and she has kids. It's like, well, she's not going to take them because this movie's shit. And they always ask me, what'd you think? I was like, it sucks. It's boring as ass. It's 2.5 hours. No one wants to sit through it. There's like 14 car chases that are all exactly the same. You could have copy pasted them. They may have been the same car chase for all I know. I was starting to doze off. I mean, what am I supposed to?
It's too long.
It's too long. It's an adventure. Like these series, my God, like even Crystal Skull, people hate on, and anyone now saying, oh, at least it's better than Crystal Skull. It's like, are you sure about that? Like, what is better? Like, I challenged a guy on one of these message boards or whatever, or on these YouTube things. I was like, what was better? Tell me one part of this movie that was better than Crystal Skull. I'm not saying Crystal Skull is great, but I'm saying that Spielberg can still make a competent film that I could see what's going on in the action, and at least I can walk away and be like, okay, they didn't make fun of Indiana Jones. Like, Mutt Lange didn't put the hat on. He was trying. It's like Indiana Jones. They still look to him. Like, he talked a big game, but Indiana Jones was still in charge of that party, right? He was the fighter or whatever. he was the lead of that party. This movie, that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the most irritating character of all time. You're constantly demeaning. It's like, well, why? Like someone should have just shot her. Like, and that kid sucked too. I'm sorry for that actor. I don't know who that actor is, but that kid sucked. He was irritating too. It's like, sorry, this ain't no short round. Like,
yeah, I tell you, man, I was just sitting there in the theater like incredulous when he hot wires that friggin' plane and takes off in the plane. I was just like, are you kidding me with this?
There's no way.
And not only is he flying a plane, he's flying it in a storm with like high winds and like torrential rain and like no visibility. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? Come on.
Look, short round.
Yeah, it's just the writing is just such a mess.
Right. Yeah. Short round stepped on that button to close them off. And then he stood up against the wall and activated that lever. And he goes, you told me to stand against the wall. But Shorty, look, can you please turn around before you lean back on something? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but Short Round's still a kid. He's like, okay. And he looks up to Indiana Jones. He's like, okay, I'll do what you say exactly, because he's so, when Indiana Jones puts his fingers together, he locks his fingers together to listen to the story of the Indian explaining what happened to the village. Shorty locks his hands together, and it's like he's still a kid. Like, Short Round was awesome because he did things that normal kids wouldn't do or would be too scared to do, but he did it because he wanted to be like Indiana Jones. So that made him like really endearing to the fans, because we like Indiana Jones and we see why Short Round would want to emulate Indiana Jones. But the problem is that this movie, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, is really a trash character. She's like, oh, I'm an independent woman and all this stuff. She's an independent woman until she needs to be bailed out by her rich husband that she married. Like, she's like, oh, he bailed me out. I'm like, I thought you were an independent, strong woman. You just said that line of dialogue 5 seconds ago, and then you're telling me that, well, you couldn't bail yourself out. He had to bail you out, and then you married him. So you're not now? Anyway, this kid is just with her because he's with her. Oh, he picked up my pocket and I kept him around. It's like, that's the same story as Short Round, except Short Round grew to respect Indy to the point where he wants to emulate him. This kid's just there to be a kid in a movie that's called Indiana Jones because the script said there's a kid there.
Yeah, and they're obviously trying to make him like the new Short Round, but I mean, I don't know. He's not terrible, but it's annoying because he's like the Swiss Army knife. He just does whatever the script needs him to do.
Right.
Rather than he just feels almost more like a plot device than a character to a certain extent.
Yep.
And yeah, her partnership with Freddie isn't very convincing. I don't, because with Indy and Short Round, you kind of get this sense of affection, that
Mm-hmm.
you can see how he kind of admires Indy, and he's obviously kind of looking for a father figure because he's, I guess, a urchin or an orphan or whatever, and Indy's
Yeah.
obviously kind of fond of him. Whereas with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, you never get the sense that she's really fond of Freddie. She just keeps him around because he's useful or something.
There's
And why is
right.
he with her? Because I mean, I'm sorry, a young man, particularly a young man in a Middle Eastern culture back 50, 60 years ago, isn't
Right.
going to admire a woman that
Of
way.
course.
I'm sorry,
That's
that's
right.
he's not. And so why is he with her? And I don't know, maybe he sees her as a meal ticket or something. I don't know. But
I don't know.
like I say, their partnership just isn't as convincing because I don't get the sense there's any real bond between them. They're just she's just got him around because he's useful. He's sticking with her because, he maybe can get some money out of it, or maybe can find a ticket to a better life or something.
I guess because like there's no scenes where they're together, just the two of them having a special moment, like with Shorty and Indy just playing cards with each other and having fun, and cheating, and you
Yeah.
accuse me of
Yeah.
cheating and all that. Like, where's the fun? Where's just the hanging out? Like, Temple of Doom doesn't have many breaks. It really only has one break. It's all action for the first like half an hour. Then there's like 20 minutes of break time where, okay, we can settle down before we get, because the temple is 1 hour. They're watching the guy getting his heart ripped out like 1 hour in. So it's like there's an hour long temple stuff, but before all of that action gets in, we have to have some character moments, and they show it. And even Willie Scott and Short Round have great moments where she's like, "Can I borrow your hat?" She's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Why?" Because I'm gonna throw up in it, and then he pulls it back. I'm gonna puke in it.
Maybe he like older women.
Oh, that is so fun. And then Willie Scott's immediately looking for her meal ticket, and it's like she's like, "What? That's the Maharaja kid." but like, and what happened to Lohan? Because Lohan dies in the beginning, and we don't really know because he would have been with Indy and Short Round, right? And I don't think that was Short Round's father, but he was somebody, because remember the guy in the restaurant, he's like, "Oh, good service here," and it's like, "Oh, he's an old friend of mine." So it's like he's like, "I've been with you on many adventures." So it's like, what happened to that
Right.
character? There's a sense that Indiana Jones has several contacts in the world. I do like that he
Right. Yeah,
has Antonio. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, he's like he knows people in like every port and like in every museum in over the world, probably. He's one of those characters. He's always gonna know a guy somewhere.
Right. So I do like the Antonio Banderas. It's like, oh, I know this guy. He's got a boat and all that. So that's kind of interesting. But again, that's only there because of checking a box. I think that James Mangold doesn't actually like the things that he's making movies about. Like, everyone talks up Logan, and even I talked up Logan. But on the surface, Logan is really just Hugh Jackman not wanting to be Wolverine. Like, it just feels like he doesn't feel like being Wolverine anymore. It's like, well, why am I watching a movie about a guy who doesn't feel like being Wolverine anymore? It's like, I want to watch a movie where the guy wants to be Wolverine. It's same with the James Bond, these last few James Bonds, where it's like, oh, I want to retire. It's like Casino Royale, people kind of enjoyed and thought, oh, this looks like a great start to a new series of Bond movies. And then in like the second or third movie, he's already retiring, or he's injured. I'm like, the guy's injured. It's like his second movie. Like, I mean, like Roger Moore did 7, and it's like he was just
Yeah,
too old. They couldn't do him anymore because he was too old at that point. But it's like, this guy's just started, and he's like, oh, I want to retire. I want to get out of this business. It's like, well, okay,
yeah. Daniel
because
Craig's Bond. I was gonna say Daniel Craig's Bond. He quits like 3 times in
I
like
know,
those
what
few
am I
movies he
watching this
does.
for? I hate that.
He
It's like,
never
well,
really
then,
seems like he wants to be 007. He's like got one
right.
foot out the door
So
pretty
why do
much
I
right
care?
after the first film.
Right? Like, so why? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So why do I care then? Why am I invested in this character if he doesn't want to be there? Why should I want to be there? And I think Mangold, all these directors like that, they're trying to distance. This is a Sean point. he's like, they try to distance themselves from the material. It's like, look, you got to dive headfirst. Like Temple of Doom is the ultimate diving in headfirst. It's like, okay, fuck it. We're going to have everything. This guy's ripping this guy's heart out. He's still going to be alive because of reasons. There's magic. That's it. There's also time displacement where, like, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he grabs where Alpha Merlina drops the whip and takes off, Indy jumps that little pit and grabs onto that mesh, and then the mesh kind of rips, and then he falls a little bit more down, and then he has to climb up. And there's that the doorway is closing, and look, you know this. You're looking at it, you're like, okay, that he can't make it because the rate at which that door is closing, and where Indiana Jones is right now, he can't make this. Like, he needs to roll a 20 to get it. And the thing is that they keep cutting back, and the door's closing, but the door's not closed yet. And you're like, okay, and then he just barely makes it out. Same with Temple of Doom, where he's being grounded. Like, that guy's he's gonna get grounded in that wheel, and they keep cutting back, and it's like his head's going down, down, down. They cut back, it's going down, down, down. Like, it looks like they rewound it. It's like he should have been crushed by now. But that's a serial thing. This is how they cheated in the serials. You'd see the head going into the grinder, and then it would cut, and it'd be like, oh my god, next week find out. Like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? You come back next week, and he's 5 seconds away from being grounded. You're like, wait a minute, like, he was closer before. I'm pretty sure he was getting ground up in the last chapter, and now he's not. But that's what it is. You got to jump in head for. Temple of Doom is we don't give a crap. It's like, go to remember, he's like in the tunnels. He's like, take the left tunnel, and then Indy takes the right tunnel. And they played that back in this film too, with very poor results. But if you watch that carefully, when he's in the tunnel cart or he's in the mine cart, the left tunnel is blue and the right tunnel is red. And he took the red one. And it's like, no, he should have gone to the blue. Like, the blue one looked obviously better. Like, it looked clearer. And the red one looked really mucky. And you're like, he took the wrong one. And Short One's like, oh, it's a left tunnel. Big mistake. And you're like,
yeah,
because
like,
that's what happens.
Wrong tunnel.
Yeah, that's what happens in these serials. You gotta go for it. You gotta make it like, and some people be like, oh, why is that one red? That's blue. That's kind of silly. Right. That's the point. It's gotta be fun. It's gotta be like, oh, you took the wrong tunnel, you idiot. Come on, Like, and then they did that with this movie, and they're like, oh, turn right, and then he turned left. I don't know if you even noticed. I don't know if you noticed that. It was one of the chase scenes, where they say turn right or whatever, and he goes left. Sure.
Is it when they got in the carts? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. It's one of them. I know. I'm like, oh, look, isn't that funny? He said the wrong direction. He went the wrong direction. It's like, I don't know. Have you seen a movie called Ong Bak? Have you seen Ong Bak? With Tony Jaa? It's
I'm sorry. I thought you.
No, okay. It's called ONG.
No, I haven't seen that. I know what you're talking about. What you're talking about, but no, I haven't seen that.
Right. They've got those vehicles in that movie. It's like like Indonesian or something, right? Or it's like a Thai. It's like a Thai. It's all about Muay Thai. So, like, literally, that there's a car chase with those same vehicles. It's bloody awesome. Guys are getting, like, they're jumping around like crazy, and you're like, well, why is this low budget, like, Thai movie have a better scene with these vehicles than Indiana Jones, which cost $400 trillion to make? Like, what the hell? Anyway. You have other topics, right? You want
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was thinking, and I didn't talk about it in my review, because again, it's something I thought I'd say for another video, but it's kind of ironic how this movie, Dial of Destiny, it's going to be one of the biggest flops in history because it was so outrageously expensive. But when Lucas and Spielberg first did Indiana Jones, first did Raiders, part of their motivation in doing it is it was kind of a proof of concept to show Hollywood that they could do a movie with a reasonable budget and bring it in under budget and on time and still produce a hit. Because and like, as the kid, and I'm sure probably most thought so, back when you were a kid, particularly in that kind of like mid 70s to mid 80s era, it seemed like Spielberg and Lucas could do no wrong. It was like everything they touched turned to gold. Everything was a hit. But they actually kind of drove the studios nuts because yes, they produced hits, but their movies kept going over budget. Spielberg went way over budget on Jaws. It wound
Mhm.
up being a hit and being the biggest movie ever. Then Lucas does Star Wars, again, goes over budget on it.
Right.
And again, it comes out, becomes the biggest movie ever. Spielberg does, I think it was Close Encounters, again, goes over budget. So the studios actually had a really kind of love-hate relationship with them because yes, they produced hits, but they would also keep racking up these big budgets and driving the studios crazy. Like, oh my God, if this thing fails, we're going to lose money. And it kind of became a problem when when Spielberg did 1941. Again, he went over budget on that movie, and then that flopped.
Yeah.
And so some of the studios actually, they kind of had a kind of a sort of, like I say, kind of a love-hate relationship with them. And I think some were reluctant to do business with them because of the financial risks. And part of their motivation of doing Raiders was to do a movie with a fairly low budget and make sure they could get it done on time, cheaply, and then still make a hit movie and show Hollywood, see, you can hire us. It's okay. And so it's kind of ironic that this movie is basically collapsing under its own weight, the weight of its own budget.
I mean, it was 20 mil Raiders. I'm looking it up now. Raiders budget was 20 million and made close to 400 million. So that's insane. This movie cost 300 million and made like 150. It's tanking. It's not, the opening weekend was awful. I mean, I think was it below Flash? I don't really look at numbers, to be honest. I don't really care what people say or think. I just have my own opinions and that's it. But I don't even really look half the time. But I think I guess it's not making the money because 150 million, that doesn't seem like enough.
Right. Right. The final numbers aren't in yet, of course. I think it's saying that it's on track to make somewhere around 60 million, which The Flash did 55. So it's pretty close with The Flash.
That's crazy. I mean, for Indiana
Uh,
Jones, you'd think that'd be like killer. Like Flash is still a pretty new thing, and word of mouth is like iffy. And Ezra Miller, like everyone likes Harrison Ford, and no one likes Ezra Miller. So the stars are different. I actually liked the Flash. I thought it was all right. I liked Ezra Miller in the Flash, but I mean, that should be nothing. Like if the Flash makes 50, then Indiana Jones should make triple that, right? Like you would think.
yeah.
So what do you think about the James Gunn
So,
casting? I guess I was just looking at your.
well, yeah, I was just about to ask, what did you think of that, of David Cornsweet being cast?
Well, I have I use the Batman '89 clause, and my Batman '89 clause is I don't comment on casting because when Batman '89 came out, and they're like Michael Keaton's gonna be Batman, I thought this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard about in my life. And then I saw
Uh,
Batman '89 like 3 times in the theater, and I've seen it at least 50 times easy. I've memorized Batman '89. I've also memorized Batman Returns. So I have zero comment. The guy's look, the guy's face looks good. I guess I gotta see the costume. You know what I mean? Like soon as I saw Brandon Routh, I thought, oh, this guy looks like pretty good. He kind of looks like Christopher Reeve. Like, wow, that's really interesting. And then I saw the costume of the first pictures of the costume. I thought, why is the cape like burgundy? I'm like, it's like the cape is awful. I'm like, why is the I just say the S, I know the shield, whatever. Like, why is the S so small? It looked kind of puffy. And I was like, why is there an S on his belt? That irritates me. The blue was kind of off. So then I was like, well, this Brandon Routh guy, he looked good on paper. And then I saw the costume and he sucks. And then I saw the movie and it was boring and stupid. So, and then I saw Henry Cavill. I thought, well, this guy looks really good. Like this guy looks pretty built. And then I saw the costume. I'm like, well, this costume sucks. It doesn't have the yellow belt or the trunks. I'm like, this doesn't look like Superman to me. It just looks weird. And then I saw the movie and it's like kind of a disaster. I hate Man of Steel. So like that's a disaster. So I don't know. I saw this guy, this Corin Sweat. And I was like, oh, this guy looks good. So let's see. I got to see the costume.
yeah, it's too early. Like I'm kind of like you. I try not to prejudge because, like, you made the point of Michael Keaton. I was that way with Heath Ledger. When
Yep.
Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker, I was incredulous. I was like, "What?
What? Yeah.
Heath Ledger, really?" And but of course it turned out to be brilliant.
Yeah.
Like you say, I think physically he's a great fit. I've never seen him in anything, so I don't know how good he is. But
Mhm.
I imagine he'll be fine.
Yeah. So who's and Lois? I don't like this. Klobby said this, and I'm kind of with him. I'm a big time Superman guy. He's my favorite character. To me, Superman is Superman, and then he has a bunch of supporting characters with him. Nowadays, it feels like, oh, Lois and Clark are like Lois and Superman are somehow on the same pedestal, and then there's the supporting cast underneath them. I'm like, no, Lois is a
Uh-huh.
supporting cast member. Like, I don't care. Like, it shouldn't be, oh, we have to make sure we have a good Lois. It's like, well, just have someone who's good, but Superman is what I'm going to see. So I don't want this to be the, oh, she's equal to Superman. It's like, I don't like that. But anyway, that's a personal
Right.
thing.
Yeah, they've elevated Lois and basically made like her and Superman like a team.
Right.
And
I don't like that.
I think they do that to an extent in the comics, and they've done that on
Yep.
the show too. But the thing is, but not just with Superman, it's like with most white male heroes now, it's like they
Mm-hmm.
can't be heroes on their own. They have to have this whole team around them that's
Right.
like helping them, you know. And I think part of I think at least partly it's because of like, diversity and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Hollywood just doesn't want to show heroes, particularly white male heroes, being successful on their own in their own right. They have to be able to be sort of supported and therefore kind of indebted to these other characters.
Yeah,
And
that
yeah,
is
it's
true.
kind of annoying. And part of it, it's killing. I think that's part of what killed those CW shows because, and again, I did a video, back when the CW was basically sold or for nothing, like it was basically given away. Just basically, Warner Brothers gave it away. Basically said, "Here, take the debt that goes with it. You can have it."
You're right.
And part of it was because none of those CW shows, Arrowverse shows were making money, and that's partly at least I think because of these ridiculous casts they have. It used to be superhero shows, and there weren't many of them, but the ones you saw, they didn't have big casts. Look at the George Reeves show in the 50s. You had Superman,
Mm-hmm.
Lois, Jimmy, and Perry White, and that is it. With the Batman show, you had Batman, Robin, Alfred, and then Commissioner Gordon and Chief O'Hara,
Yeah,
and
and
that's it. Oh
and
well,
really,
and
Commissioner Gordon and Chief O'Hara is completely useless. I love that show. I've watched it. It's in my top 5 favorite shows. So I'm not bashing it.
and
It's in
Aunt
my top
Harriet.
5. Yeah, and Harriet. And Harriet is literally there for no reason other than to just be irritating. Chief O'Hara has zero to do. It's really Commissioner Gordon. The first 5 minutes, Commissioner Gordon says something, gets Batman. Then Alfred says something. Then it's literally Batman, Robin, and whatever the villain was of that week, and that's basically your cast.
Right.
Everyone else is like just supporting. Linda Carter is just Linda Carter
And
and Steve Trevor. Um,
right. I
that's
was
it.
going to say, yeah, it was Linda Carter and Lyle Wagner, and that was
Yeah, Lyle
basically
Wagner.
it.
Yeah,
And and the Flash show, you had uh,
yeah.
good Lord,
John
I'm
Wesley
blanking on his
Ship.
name now. John
Yeah,
Wesley
John
Ship
Wesley
as
Ship.
Flash. You had Amanda Pays as Tina and
Yeah,
Julio. I forget the
and
actor's name.
Julio.
So
Yeah,
3 cast members.
that's it. Why is
And
our team Flash? Like, yeah,
yeah, and it seemed like looking back, I think Lois, what is that? Lois and Clark, the Dean Cain, Terry
yep.
Hatcher show. I think it kind of started this trend because it kind of sort of tried to make the show into almost into kind of a quasi soap opera. Because I remember at the time they were trying to kind of imitate moonlighting. I think that was the idea, was
I
that they
do
were
like
trying to
moonlighting
imitate
though.
that kind of dynamic.
Yeah,
But you had Lois and Clark, you had Jimmy and Perry, then you had Ma and Pa Kent,
right.
and I think for the first season you had Luthor, although I think he went after the first season. But then with with Smallville is where it really started to kick into gear, where it was basically superhero show as a soap opera,
Yeah,
and you had all these characters, because I think in the first season there's like 8, 9 characters on the show. Because you got Lois, or you got Clark, Lois, or Lana. I mean Clark,
Yeah,
Lana,
Lana.
Ma and Pa Kent, Lex, Chloe, Pete Ross, Lana's boyfriend at the time. I forget that character's name. So that's like 8 characters. And
Yeah.
I may be forgetting somebody. And in the later seasons, they had like 10 or 11 cast members, you know?
Yeah, I
And
don't. It's just that's out of control.
those,
You can't pay all these people. Like, what are they doing?
right. And those CW shows kind of followed suit. I think because it was like as time goes on, they just keep adding people in. And I think, again, I think part of it is diversity. They want to be able to tick boxes to say, oh, we've got one of these and we got one of
Mhm.
those and all that. But also it's because they make it into this kind of soap opera. So you have to have all these different people so they can be romantically, involved, so that this one's sleeping with that one wants to date that one, whatever. And yeah, I mean, it's no wonder those shows didn't make money because it's like you're paying all these people, especially as the seasons go on and you have to re-sign them. I don't know if you noticed it, but so they renewed that Superman and Lois show, but they
Right.
gutted the cast. They basically got rid of everybody except for Superman and Lois and the two sons. All the other like 5, 6 cast members, they got rid of all of them
I bet she'll be
because
better.
obviously because they well, probably, but the thing is, it couldn't make money. I will bet you.
It
With
was
all those
boring.
actors.
Like I watched Superman and Lois. I watched the first 2 seasons fully, and then I didn't start season 3 yet. My buddy's like my wife never does these things, but she renamed the show, which is hilarious. She called it Man and Lois because it's like, yeah, where's the superstar? Like his costume in the first episode, the Max Fleischer costume, I was like, oh my god, is this what it's going to be? This is awesome. And then it's like, yeah, I dumped that suit. Now we got this weird textured suit, which makes my shoulders look weird, and it's like it looks dirty all the time. Like Superman can't clean his shoe, it can't clean his costume. I was like, what happened here? Like you had an awesome costume and it looked good. And literally the next day, everybody on the internet was posting saying, wow, look at this. And then they're putting the screen, they put that costume next to the cartoon. And like, oh, look, it's the Max Fleischer cartoon. And then all of a sudden people knew what Max Fleischer was and who didn't care about him before. But it's like, oh yeah, this is,
Yeah.
this is great, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay, now we have this new suit. It's like, well, this suit sucks. And actually that show disproved the Henry Cavill thing, because everyone's like, oh, you can't have the trunks, you can't have it look like it's tights anymore. It's like, well, that there's only 2 clips of that costume or something, and it blew up all over the internet. Everyone was talking about how awesome it was. So obviously people want that. Like, and then you immediately changed it to that texturized costume. It was all dark. And then it's like Superman didn't do anything. It's like he just gets beat up all the time. It's just like Supergirl. She gets beat up all the time. I'm like, what the hell's going on with this crap? Like, can't you guys? And then it's like same with Supergirl had a team of people. I thought Melissa Benoist was great. She looked good. I'm like, oh yeah, her costume looked good. I was like, okay, she looks like Supergirl. This is pretty good. And then it's like, oh, now she has pants, and like there's like 400 other heroes on here. I'm like, okay, well, what is this show? Like, you have guest appearances, but. And then it's like, oh, Lena lied to me or something. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And same with Lois. It's like, I want to date that girl, but she doesn't like me. I'm like, wow. I mean, as a kid reading comics, as a little kid reading comics, I'll tell you right now, I never read the whole comic. If the page didn't have Superman on it, I skipped the entire page. Like, I'm like, it's Superman talking to Lois. I'm skipping it. Like, literally skipped the page as a kid. So I don't know.
Yeah.
She
So
was
Brian
let go,
Hebner,
Brian.
they let go of her. They got rid of everybody except for Lois and Clark and the Sons. And then they added in the actor that plays Luthor, who I'm not crazy about. But I tell you what, he's a lot better than what's his face. Friggin' John Cryer was playing
Oh,
Luthor on Supergirl. I was just like,
yeah.
oh my God, get out of here. Freaking soy Luther. Get rid of that shit.
Yeah, I thought it was amusing because he was Lenny in Superman 4, so I thought that was kind of amusing. But then I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
as Tank Girl says, it was swell, but the swelling went down. I love the Tank Girl movie. I know everyone hates it. We won't discuss it here, but anyway.
It's been so long since I saw it in the theaters. I
So did
don't
I.
remember
Yeah.
much. I remember kind of just walking out thinking that didn't make a lot of sense, but
Right, and it didn't, and I loved it. I'm like, wow, this makes no sense, but I love it. And everyone hates it. It's okay. I'm good with it. I'm like the biggest Tank Girl movie fan ever. But anyway,
weren't
so yeah,
there
his casting looks good.
I'm trying to remember Tanko, weren't there like these kangaroo people in it?
Yeah, they're from the
Kangaroo men
comics.
or something?
Yep, they're
Okay.
mutated kangaroos, and they're like fighters and whatever. And it's like they're called the Rippers. And I mean, it's from the comics. I don't know what the comics were weird. I actually tried to read Tank Girl comics, and I just can't get into them because they're too weird. But I think it worked for me as a movie. Like I've got the poster framed. I've got the cassette soundtrack, the CD soundtrack. I got the movie on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. Like, I got like whatever I could get from. I've got Lori Petty's autograph coming in. Actually, I just ordered it from GalaxyCon. It'll be personalized by her, so that's good. So it's like I don't know. I love that movie. But
Yeah, it was in that window there where she was kind of a hot property, like when she was in she was in Point Break.
yep,
What else was she in?
League of Their
Of
Own,
course,
and
she
she
did
was in
League of Their Own. Yeah, yeah. I don't remember. I remember she was Livewire on Superman,
yes.
on the animated Superman. I don't
Yeah.
remember much else. So, as far as the Superman legacy, like, what are you hoping for the movie as far as the plot? Because I mean, I don't think they're doing an origin. I think they're skipping that.
Right. Look, I want Superman to be fun and science fiction adventures, and you know that we're going through the Legionnaire or the Legion of Superheroes stuff, and I've been reading Superboy and all that, right? So I've been going through all
Right?
the
Yeah, yeah.
pre-crisis stuff. Yeah. So we you know that we're doing that, and the thing is, it's like I like the idea that when you open up a Superman comic book, anything can happen and it'll be fun. And I felt like the movies kind of grounded it. It was almost like, okay, look, I love Doctor Who. It's my favorite show of all time. John Pertwee is my favorite Doctor. But when John Pertwee started, remember, he was grounded, right? He couldn't leave Earth. And I feel like
Yeah, he was stuck on Earth, right?
he was stuck on Earth for a few seasons, right? But that didn't bother me.
Yeah.
And I watched it in order. Like I watched everything in order. So I started with the first Doctor. So that didn't bother me.
Yeah.
However, I feel like if they were making it today as a movie, they would use that concept and just have him stuck on Earth. It's like, no, he shouldn't be stuck on Earth. So what I would do with Superman, every movie would start off with a 15-minute James Bond type of thing where Superman is on an alien world helping an alien species that's completely different to our own, not a humanoid thing like some weird either plant aliens or some, I don't know, something else. And then he helps them out there. And then there's the credit sequence. And after the credit sequence, he can be back on Earth doing stuff. And then perhaps what he did for the aliens, like maybe they gave him some sort of gift that he puts in the fortress, and he has a little collection of gifts that he's been given. And maybe that gift that he gave him helps him in the current movie that he's in, to help him against the big baddie. And that's what I would do. And I would make every movie under 2 hours maximum, because you can't rewatch movies. The reason I memorized a lot of these movies is, I watched Army of Darkness like 3 times in one day. Like I'd watch it. It's like, oh, I'm watching an Army of Darkness again. My mom would be like, are you watching Mortal Kombat again? I'm like, shit, yeah, I'm watching Mortal Kombat again. I watched Mortal Kombat 4 times. And I know people think that movie's whatever. I saw Mortal Kombat 7 times in 2 days. I rented it for like 2 days. I watched it 7 times. And because it's 90 minutes or whatever, right? Like these 3-hour movies, like when are you ever going to watch? Like I love Ben-Hur, one of my favorites, Lawrence of Arabia, one of my favorite films. And we watch Lawrence of Arabia once every maybe 2 years or so. We'll put it on, right? But I mean, Army of Darkness, I'd be watching that like 3. I watched Escape from New York and Escape from LA every weekend. Like I'd watch New York on Saturday and then LA on Sunday. And I'd watch that. I think I did like maybe like a year of that. Like when I watched them it's like, I'm like, oh, I'm watching Escape from LA again. It's like, And it's like, and that's not even really all that great compared to New York. But I'm like, I don't care. It's Snake Plissken doing cool shit. I'm watching this again. And it's like, I ended up memorizing these movies. And it's like, right, I can't memorize a Superman movie that's like 3 hours long. Now, Christopher Reeve, the first one's 3 hours. Okay, but that's the first Superman mega blockbuster movie ever. George Reeves is awesome. Of course, he's great. He's an entire generation Superman, but we never really had a proper big mega scale origin the way that they did it for this Superman movie. That's it.
Right.
After Christopher Reeve part one origin, I never need to see another one again.
Yeah, they don't need to do him again. That everyone's seen that origin. So, um, who would you like to see him cast as Luthor? Because supposedly,
I don't know.
who is it? I've seen some names kicked around. I keep seeing Nicholas Hoult. He's, I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I
he's
know
a
who it
good
is.
actor, but I don't see him as Luthor myself.
He's Beast, right?
Um,
Isn't he
I will
Beast?
say that,
Yeah, he's Beast.
yeah, he played the Beast. He was just in that Renfield movie a couple of
Yeah,
months
I didn't
ago,
watch that yet.
and
Um,
it's pretty good. Or well, I wouldn't say pretty. It's okay.
well,
Basically,
I like
it's
schlock
okay for
movies,
Nicolas
so
Cage. Yeah,
yeah,
Nicolas
yeah,
Cage is a lot of fun in it. His Dracula is pretty entertaining, of course.
yeah.
But I mean, I would be
Um,
tempted to say cast Mark Strong, but he's already played Savannah and played Sinestro, so I think casting him as Luthor 2 is probably a little bit much.
he's like every villain ever. Yeah, again, I don't do casting things because I just don't know. I'm gonna leave that up to James Gunn. I just want next thing I want to see is I want to see the costume on Superman, and I want to see the way they do it. Listen, if I can't take my niece and nephew to this movie, then I'm going to be extremely pissed. It's like Man of Steel is a nightmare. Batman versus Superman is like 7 hours long and absolutely atrocious. And that 4 hour Justice League cut is the most like indulgent thing of all time. It's like it's like, oh, here's the dark universe or the hell it was called, the alternate world. I'm like, why do I need to see this? There's not going to be a part 5 or part 2 to this, so you can just cut all of that out. It makes no difference to the story you're telling right now. It's like I don't know. I can't stand it. So let's see. This is going to be a big one. If this movie isn't the real Superman, and people keep saying, well, that's your opinion. It's not an opinion. Every single person who saw Man of Steel's, half the people liked it and half the people didn't. But everybody likes the Christopher Reeve first film. Even my mom and my wife's parents like it. And my sister-in-law likes it. She doesn't know anything about superheroes. Every person who likes films likes the Christopher Reeve Part 1 movie. So that's what you need from Superman. The people like part 2. Some people don't like part 3. Some people really hate part 4. That's fine. I like all 4 of them. But Man of Steel was so polarizing. You have a bunch of people saying, oh, it's a masterpiece. It's like, no, it's not. It's like, and some people think it's utter garbage, which is me. So you need to do better. This is Superman. There shouldn't be too much. There shouldn't be too many opinions. It should it should be like 90% fresh or whatever, right? Like it shouldn't be like 50-50 and we don't know, half the people hate it and half the people love it. So if that does well, then that can
Right.
springboard into something big.
Yeah, I think, like you say, they definitely need to lighten the tone, and they need to make it fun. And I think the big trick will be just not making it too goofy. That's the thing with James Gunn, is I worry he'll veer too much into the humor and make
Right.
it kind of slapsticky and make it like, particularly with like raunchy humor or something like that, which I don't think is a good fit for Superman. Um, I mean, in interviews I've seen with him, he says the right kind of things. So I hope I hope it will be good. Have you watched Secret Invasion?
No. My wife kind of wants to watch it, but every time we watch one of these Marvel shows, they're just like, it's almost like they're worse than the last one. So
Yeah.
I haven't liked any. I really liked WandaVision, and I know I'm alone in that. I watched that twice, but every other Marvel show, I guess if you don't count, I like that werewolf thing. That was okay, but every other Marvel show, I absolutely hated. Well, different degrees of hate. Like Hawkeye was like okay, I guess. I hate that Winter Soldier one. That's probably my worst one. I hated She-Hulk. No,
Really?
sorry,
I thought that
She-Hulk.
was actually. I thought the Winter Soldier one was actually one of the less objectionable ones.
Yeah,
I've
no,
never
I know.
actually watched the whole show. Now, to be fair, I've never said I don't have Disney Plus, so I've never watched any of the series. I've just watched bits and pieces on YouTube, but that one
Oh,
didn't seem like it was that bad. The Winter Soldier one.
oh dear. Oh no, 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 no. Talk to Clobby privately if you no, that one is like really the first two episodes are stellar and then it quickly descends. And literally the villain in that Winter Soldier one is the worst villain in literally cinema. I like I would take Phoebe Waller Bridge over this person. Like I it was the worst character. Anyway, but yeah, so I didn't watch Secret Invasion yet. I will watch it because I did watch all the other Marvel ones. I watched She-Hulk, which was awful. That's just a bad television show. It doesn't work on any level. Yeah, so I'll watch Secret
Oh, oh.
Invasion. Yeah, go
Before I
ahead.
forget, I meant so I tried to send you that D20 future as a
Oh
PDF. I
yes.
tried to DM it to you, but it wouldn't let me do it. It won't take that kind of media. So if I'm gonna
Uh,
send you that and some other stuff, I'll need to get a I don't know an email or something from you.
I'll tell you what I'll do.
I'll resend it.
I've got a G Drive. Why don't you send me? Why don't you tweet me your email, and I will share my Google Drive with you, and then you can just upload it.
Okay,
Right.
I can
And
do
then you
that.
can also, and then if you need something from me, you can download it from the G Drive. I share it with everybody. I have a G Drive that I share with all the guys like Steven and Sean because, some of those people don't have Disney Plus. So sometimes I lend them things so that they can also watch them. And I do all that through G
Okay.
Drive. So if you want to be on that, like Raquel is on it, Klobby's on it, all those guys are on it. We got all these people showing up in the chat, and I got to go in like 1 minute. Masters Adega, how's it going?
Yeah. Hey, Adega. Hey, Masters Made at Mexico. Thank you for stopping by. Well, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll tweet you my Gmail,
Yeah,
and then after I get done here,
yeah.
and then I'll share that stuff with you. Yeah, that'll work. Okay,
Oh,
man.
I
Well,
see.
thanks for stopping by.
Masters.
If you gotta go, I've had you here for a while.
Yeah, I'll listen in a little bit longer. It's just that, yeah, I just what is what Winter Soldier or what is Master saying? Winter Soldier. Better I say nothing, as you all know. It comes down to if I start to rant. Right. So, yeah, that one was not good. It looks very cool and like he's got the costume and all that stuff, so it seems really good. But if we talk privately, like it's heavy duty on the I don't want to say woke factor, like it's woke factor 100 or whatever. It's like really like hardcore. So it's like and it comes out of nowhere. Like the first two episodes was like a normal show, and then all of a sudden they may as well have got up on a pedestal and started preaching. It's crazy. It was ridiculous, Masters. You're right. It started off normal, and then it's like in some ways it's worse than She-Hulk. Um, but She-Hulk is just a bad show. So anyway, but yeah. All right, I gotta go.
Okay, man. Well, thank you for stopping by again.
Thanks for having me. That this is awesome. And I've tweeted out the stream, so hopefully I tweeted out earlier too, so hopefully we can get
I
some more
saw that.
people on
Thank you
there.
for that.
But all right. Thanks for having me, man.
Okay,
Take it
man.
easy.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Okay. Let me go ahead and get through. Let's see. It's been okay. So I've been a little over an hour. So I'll go till 9 because then I think. Well, yeah, I'll go till about 9. So I got a few more uh, articles to go through here. So I'll talk about again. We'll talk about David Corn Sweat and the new Lois. What Rachel Brosnahan. We'll cover that right quick. Okay, so this is from a Hollywood Reporter. Superman Legacy finds leads with David Cornsweet, Rachel Brosnahan. I hope I'm saying that right. James Gunn has found his Superman and Lois Lane after a lengthy search. David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan will star in Superman Legacy. The film will launch DC's new universe under writer-director Gunn and his DC Studios boss, co-boss Peter Safran. So Corn Sweat and Brosnahan were among 6 actors who vied for the lead roles, with Gunn filming screen tests over the June 17th weekend, with Nicholas Hoult and Tom Brittney also in contention to play Superman Clark Kent, and Emma Mackey and Phoebe Dynevor, is that how you say that? In the running for Lois Lane. Well, I mean, in terms of their look, physical look, certainly, I think he made the best choice. We'll see if they're good because I haven't really seen them in anything. I haven't watched any of their previous stuff. Few roles are as coveted or come with as much pressure as Superman. That is certainly true. That's doubly true in the current landscape, as Corn Sweat will anchor a new universe as DC attempts to reinvent itself after a streak of misses with October's Black Adam, March's Shazam Fear of the Gods, and the recent The Flash. Only 3 actors have played the character on the big screen, with Christopher Reeve's career-defining work in 1978's Superman launching the modern superhero genre and spawning 3 sequels. Brandon Routh starred in Bryan Singer's Superman Returns, a film that failed to ignite the box office and resulted in him being a one and done. And a decade ago, Henry Cavill starred in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, the film that launched the DC Extended Universe and made Cavill a fan favorite for his dignified work as Clark Kent. Cavill went on to appear in Batman vs. Superman and Justice League, and after years away from the role, appeared in a cameo in Black Adam. And announced his intention to star in more Superman projects. That was all before Gunn and Safran were hired to revamp DC and yanked the rug out from under him. Masters Maniac Mexico says Shazam fear the box office. Yeah, I think they are fearing the box office these days. Man, it's brutal. Man, I tell you, man, this summer is brutal for movies. It's because look how many flops there have been in just like the last month. You've had Little Mermaid, The Flash, of course, that Elementals movie flopped. Now Indiana Jones is flopping, and apparently that whatever it's called, that Kraken movie, whatever it is, that's flopping. And those action figures are still catching dust. Yeah, I assume you mean action figures, right, on the shelves. Yeah, it's ugly. Superman Legacy has a release date of July 11th, 2025, with Gunn expecting to film early next year. The casting search will now continue for characters such as Lex Luthor and the superheroes The Authority, who are expected to debut in Legacy before top-lining their own film. I hope that's not the case. I hope they're not going to put The Authority in the movie too, because, I mean, unless they're going to be, because I don't think they would set them up as the villains if they're then going to spin them off into their own movies. So that would mean maybe you're going to have Superman and the Authority and then another villain or another adversary. I mean, I'm worrying about this movie getting overstuffed with too many characters. That's a trap that superhero movies fall into sometimes. Let's see. The Superman project will be the first film fully produced under Gunn and Safran's tenure. The Flash was released under the newly minted studio heads. That movie, which was plagued by the poor publicity incurred by star Ezra Miller, earned a disappointing $55 million during its opening weekend. Legacy marks a massive career shift for Corn Sweat, not only being #1 on the call sheet of a studio film for the first time, but doing so as one of pop culture's most enduring heroes. The actor first broke out in Ryan Murphy's series The Politician. I've never seen that, which was followed by another turn in the Murphy-backed Netflix series Hollywood. Haven't seen that either. Other credits include HBO series We Own the City and the A24 horror sequel Pearl. Up next is the Apple series Lady in the Lake and the Twister sequel Twisters. They're doing a Twister sequel? Oh, Lord. And Masters Maniac Mexico says Thor Suck and Plunder also failed, but yep, that was another one. Brosnahan is an Emmy and Golden Globe winner for her acclaimed series The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She rose to prominence with House of Cards, which earned her an Emmy nomination. 3 actors have previously played Lois on the big screen. Margot Kidder gave a defining performance full of intelligence and spunk in 1978 Superman and its three sequels, in which she starred opposite Christopher Reeve. Kate Bosworth played Lois in 2006's Superman Returns, while Amy Adams brought the character to life in Man of Steel and also starred in Dawn of Justice and Justice League. Yeah, I didn't think Kate Bosworth was a good choice for Lois. I just never felt she had the I don't know. She just never had kind of the drive and I don't know, just the kind of grit that the character called for. She was just a little too mousy, in my opinion. And Amy Adams, I like Amy Adams, but she really should be playing Lana, not Lois. Quote, I completely relate to Superman because he's everything I am, Gunn told the Hollywood Reporter in April for a cover story. Quote, he's somebody who is an outsider who feels like an alien, but also the ultimate insider because he's Superman, and that's kind of what I feel like. Okay. Not sure that entirely makes sense. All right. Let's see. Let me bring another one up here. And this is from Screen Rant. The Star Wars next movie will leave George Lucas behind and begin a new chapter for the saga. Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy has indicated the next Star Wars movie will be moving on from George Lucas, as Rey's new Jedi Order film will begin a new chapter. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker marked the end of Lucasfilm's mission to complete Lucas's 9-episode saga, and Rey's next adventure will take her 15 years into the future. With the first phase of Disney's Star Wars effectively over, the franchise is looking to move in new directions. In an interview with Games Radar, Kennedy shared that Rey's new Jedi Order movie will move on from the story that Lucas's saga told. Quote, and I think it offers just tremendous opportunity to introduce new characters and start with something fresh because we culminated with what George was creating and we take all that and we move on to the next chapter. Yeah, well, you took what George created and you bastardized it, but whatever. With the benefit of 15 years deeper into the timeline to play with, Lucasfilm can craft a narrative with new characters, good and evil. The new Star Wars movie will see Rey's promise to Luke Skywalker serve as the core of what drives the heroine and the story. How much of the Star Wars sequel trilogy will actually, or how much the Star Wars sequel trilogy actually followed what Lucas intended is up for debate, but it's clear that Kennedy views that venture as complete. After the Rise of Skywalker, left jaws dropped worldwide. Yeah, and like disbelief at how awful it was. Reasons being good and bad. The future of the future of the future. God, who wrote this? The future was left to fall on Rey's shoulders. A continuation of her story was inevitable, albeit happening sooner than expected, and rebuilding the Jedi Order again is the natural next step for both the character and the franchise. What's more important than anything is that Lucasfilm not lose sight of the central tenets and themes of Star Wars. Lucas is the heart of the franchise, and he always will be. The sequels were ironically derivative of his original films, resulting in the creator's criticism for not doing anything new. Lucasfilm now has the blank slate to do just that, and the next Star Wars movie can honor Lucas by moving on from his central storyline. Yeah, I mean, is anyone looking forward to this? It's really galling because, in the extended universe of the novels, Luke establishes the Jedi Order and trains a new generation of Jedi, and they're obviously just having Rey replace him. It's just so aggravating. But anyway, so it's been an hour and a half, so I will go ahead and wrap it up there. I want to thank J Man for stopping by once again. It was great talking with him. And again, thank those who stopped by to watch the stream and those who will watch on a replay. And I hope you guys all have a good Independence Day and enjoy your holiday and have a good evening. And and I am going to have my National Guard next week. My Guard unit is meeting, so won't be a stream next weekend. So I guess I'll be back in 2 weeks. And once again, thanks for watching, and have a good night.